Whether they were too niche, too ahead of their time, or just a bit too much, these GM cars were forgotten as soon as they hit the streets. 1997 Chevrolet S10 Electric. It's only now that electric vehicles are taking over the world, but even before they finally became all that popular, automakers were experimenting with battery power, like the GM EV1 Coupe. But in 1997, GM put e-power in a truck and made the Chevy S10 Electric, which at the time was a cool concept. The problem was that it used lead batteries and ran only 47 miles on combined electric power before it needed a charge, and its top speed was a measly 70 miles per hour. Yet, there are a few still running on the roads today, only, largely forgotten. 1991, Oldsmobile Cutless Calais Quad 442. Quite a mouthful of a name, and a mouthful of a car, for sure. The Oldsmobile Cutless Calais Quad 442 was supposed to be a performance car of its times, with 180 to 190 horsepower on tap. It looked cool with that ducktail spoiler, but lacked the power of that classic Olds 442. The car was handsome, to say the least, but its engine remained largely noisy and not all that impressive as it sounded. This is why it is largely forgotten today. It was replaced by Achieva SKX, which was way more uninspiring in looks. 1973 Pontiac Astra. Sometimes even the bad cars, in retrospect, become cool, and such is the case with the Pontiac Astra, which looked superb, but at heart was the same disastrous car they called the Chevy Vega. Unlike the Vega that came cheap and sold in droves because of that, the Astra was priced rather dear. It came in various forms like a hatchback coupe, a notchback sedan, a safari wagon, and a panel delivery. When the Vega was canceled, so was the Astra, though a rebadged Sunbird safari wagon kept on selling for another couple of years. 1988 Buick Riata. The Buick Riata was another short-lived GM wonder from the world of Buick, and the reason for its short life was because it was competing with the likes of the Cadillac Elante, Ford XP, and the Pontiac Fiero, though we all know how that ended in a fiery mess later on. And then there were the Japanese entrants. So all in the Riata was cool, but a bit too retro cool for its own good. That said, its unique assembly process and that 3.8-liter V6 did give it an aesthetic appeal as well as a healthy power, but it went off all too soon and is barely remembered today. 1958 Chevrolet Yeoman two-door. The Chevy Yeoman was an ode, or a big hint, towards its vinyl and rubber interior that could basically be washed with a bucket of water and a sponge. It came as a 2- or 4-door station wagon and came powered by either a straight 6 or a solid 4.6-liter V8 with a dual-barrel carburetor. But less than 16,600 were made, and today, only a handful still survive. 1973 Oldsmobile Omega. The Oldsmobile Omega was the Olds' take on the Chevy Nova, but since the base car was good, and Omega was even better, because it came looking way cooler than the common Nova. And there was another badge-engineered one of them called the Buick Apollo, and it was equally forgotten as well. The Omega was still a reliable 70s car, but it and the Apollo remained largely overshadowed by the Nova despite their distinctive looks, and the higher price also did not make them sell all that well. 1978 El Dorado Custom Biarritz Classic. The Cadillac El Dorado was an already expensive car, and the 1978 Custom Biarritz package on it took it way beyond the common man's league. The package itself cost $2,466, and if you took it with the Astro roof, it went up to a whopping $3,547. Not many were made. Only 2,000 came to take the curtain call of the 7th Gen El Dorado, with 1,499 with a padded Landau vinyl top, 475 with Astra roofs, 25 with sunroofs, and only a single one with a power-sliding T-top. 1978 Buick Century. The Buick Century was yet another example of rebadged cars that got lost somewhere between the original and the ill-carried-out plan. In 1978, seeing the success of the smaller imports, GM downsized most of its models, and much like the Oldsmobile Cutless Aeroback gave the Buick Century the same treatment. Only it forgot to add a notchback sedan, and this alone took the Buick Century from a car that had great potential to something that sold badly and is barely remembered today.